plan for Microsoft Entra integration? When IT staff at Contoso implements a cloud service or an application in their IT environment, they typically want to use a single identity store for their local and cloud-based applications. By using directory synchronization, they can connect their on-premises ADDS with Microsoft Entra ID. What is directory synchronization? Directory synchronization enables synchronization between on-premises ADDS and Microsoft Entra ID for users, groups, and contacts. In its simplest form, you install a directory synchronization component on a server in your on-premises domain. You then provide an account with domain admin and enterprise admin access to on-premises ADDS and another account with administrator access to Microsoft Entra ID and let it run. User accounts, groups, and contacts that you select from ADDS are then replicated into Microsoft Entra ID. Users can then use those accounts to sign into and access Azure services that rely on Microsoft Entra ID for authentication. Unless you activate password synchronization, users will have a separate password from their on-premises environment to sign in to an Azure resource. Even if you implement password sync, users are still prompted for their credentials when they access the Azure resource on domain-joined computers. The advantage with password sync is that to sign into the Azure resource, users can use the same username and password as their domain login. Don't confuse this with SSO. The behavior provided with password sync is called same sign-in. And with Azure, the synchronization flow is one way from local ADDS to Azure. However, with Microsoft Entra ID P1 or P2 features, some attributes replicate in the other direction. For example, you can configure Azure to write passwords back to an on-premises ADDS and to groups and devices from Microsoft Entra ID. If you don't want to synchronize your entire on-premises ADDS, directory synchronization for Microsoft Entra ID supports limited filtering and customization of attribute flow based on the following values. Domain user attributes, applications, Microsoft Entra Connect. You can use Microsoft Entra Connect to perform synchronization between on-premises ADDS and Microsoft Entra ID. Microsoft Entra Connect is a wizard-based tool designed to enable connectivity between an on-premises identity, infrastructure, and Azure. Using the wizard, you can choose your topology and requirements, and then the wizard deploys and configures all the required components for you. Depending on the requirements selected, this can include Azure Active Directory Sync, Azure AD Sync, Exchange Hybrid Deployment, Password Change Writeback, ADFS and ADFS proxy servers or web application proxy, Microsoft Graph PowerShell module. Note, most organizations deploy a dedicated synchronization server to host Microsoft Entra Connect. When you run Microsoft Entra Connect, the following occurs. New users, groups, and contact objects in on-premises ADDS are added to Microsoft Entra ID. However, licenses for cloud services such as Microsoft 365 aren't automatically assigned to these objects. Attributes of existing users, groups, or contact objects that are modified in on-premises ADDS are modified in Microsoft Entra ID. However, not all on-premises ADDS attributes are synchronized to Microsoft Entra ID. You can configure a set of attributes that synchronize to Microsoft Entra ID by using Synchronization Manager component of Microsoft Entra Connect. Existing users, groups, and contact objects that are deleted from the on-premises ADDS are deleted from Microsoft Entra ID. Existing user objects that are disabled on-premises are disabled in Azure. However, licenses aren't automatically unassigned. Microsoft Entra ID requires that you have a single source of authority for every object. Therefore, it's important to understand that in a Microsoft Entra Connect scenario, when you're running Active Directory synchronization, you're mastering objects from within your on-premises ADDS using tools such as Active Directory users and computers or Windows PowerShell. However, the source of authority is the on-premises ADDS. After the first synchronization cycle is complete, the source of authority is transferred from the cloud to the on-premises ADDS. All subsequent changes to cloud objects, except for licensing, are mastered from the on-premises ADDS tools. The corresponding cloud objects are read-only, and Microsoft Entra administrators can't edit cloud objects if the source of authority is on-premises ADDS, unless you implement some of the technologies that allow write-back. Permissions and accounts required to run Microsoft Entra Connect. To implement Microsoft Entra Connect, you must have an account with required permissions assigned on both the local ADDS and Microsoft Entra ID. Installing and configuring Microsoft Entra Connect requires the following accounts: an Azure account with global administrator permission in the Azure tenant, such as an organizational account. That is not the account that was used to set up the account itself. An on-premises account with enterprise administrator permissions in the on-premises ADDS. In the Microsoft Entra Connect wizard, you can choose to use an existing account for this purpose, or let the wizard create an account for you. Microsoft Entra Connect uses an Azure Global Administrator account to provision and update objects when the Microsoft Entra Connect configuration wizard is run. You should create a dedicated service account in Azure for directory synchronization to use, because you can't use the Azure Tenant Administrator account. This restriction is because the account that you use to set up Azure might not have a domain name suffix that matches the domain name. The account needs to be a member of the Global Administrators role group. In the on-premises environment, the account that is used to install and configure Microsoft Entra Connect must have the following permissions: Enterprise Administrator permissions in ADDS. This permission is required to create the synchronization user account in Active Directory. Local Machine Administrator permissions. This permission is required to install the Microsoft Entra Connect software. The account used to configure Microsoft Entra Connect and run the configuration wizard must reside in the local machine's AD Sync admins group. By default, the account used to install Microsoft Entra Connect is automatically added to this group. Note: the account you use to install AD Connect is automatically added to the AD Sync admins group when you install the product. You must sign out and sign in again to use the Synchronization Service Manager interface, because the account won't pick up the group security identifier SID until the next time the account is used to sign in. The Enterprise Administrator account is only required when you install and configure Microsoft Entra Connect, but its credential isn't stored or saved by the configuration wizard. Therefore, you should create a special Microsoft Entra Connect Administrator account for installing and configuring Microsoft Entra Connect, and assign this account to the Enterprise Administrators group when Microsoft Entra Connect is set up. However, this Microsoft Entra Connect Administrator account should be removed from the Enterprise Administrators group after Microsoft Entra Connect setup is complete. MSO. This account is created during Microsoft Entra Connect installation and is configured to synchronize to the Azure tenant. The account has directory replication permissions in the on-premises ADDS and write permission on certain attributes to enable hybrid deployment. IID. This is the service account for the synchronization engine. It's created with a randomly generated complex password automatically configured to never expire. When the directory synchronization service runs, it uses the service account credentials to read from the local Active Directory and then write the contents of the synchronization database to Azure. This is done using the tenant administrator credentials that you enter in the Microsoft Entra Connect configuration wizard. Caution: you shouldn't change the service account for Microsoft Entra Connect after you install Microsoft Entra Connect, because Microsoft Entra Connect always attempts to run using the account created during setup. If you change the account, Microsoft Entra Connect stops running and the scheduled synchronizations no longer occur.